The case studies that this movie covers are really just the tip of the iceberg. For the last 4 years, I've been living this. We've been fielding calls from all over the country, all over the world. And one of the most heartbreaking things is the violation of rights of elderly people, particularly elderly women living alone. You saw that brief clip of the woman in Baraboo, Wisconsin, whose water was shut off because she refused a water smart meter. She was electrosensitive and got headaches, and she just did not want this on her home. So the water company said, it's one thing to disconnect someone's electricity. You get candles, you can make it through. But to disconnect someone's water is basically saying that you either are homeless because the city can come and condemn your property, or you accept this radiation-emitting device. And so for every one case that was in this film, there are thousands of others whose stories have not been told, or whose stories have been told on our website or other websites. And so, just keep that in mind. And aside from all the health and the privacy and the safety, the fire impacts, when you get right down to it, this is a huge, monumental waste of money. I mean, there have been billions and billions of dollars spent on this that could have been spent on things that we really urgently need. Solar panels, efficiency improvements in people's homes. And when you think about what could have been done to benefit the public, but instead our government is funneling this money to a series of corporations like General Electric, Silver Spring Networks, Elster, Itron. Yes, including some corporations here in Fort Collins, to benefit them at the expense of the public. And that is what is, so aside, let's say the smart meters were fine, they didn't cause all these problems, it would still be a huge waste of money because they're not doing what they were promised to do, which is to reduce energy consumption. Analog meters did not consume power. They measure power. The smart meters all consume electricity. So they are actually worsening our carbon emissions and our energy, our fossil fuel habit. In 2011, when I measured, I went to Berkeley, Berkeley, California, and I was measuring the radiation from a bank of smart meters, about 80 smart meters. A woman had called us because the shrub in front of her house had completely died. This beautiful green, healthy shrub. Within about 3 or 4 weeks of the smart meters going in, it just started dying from the inside out. It was right in front of this bank of meters. So we went to measure the pulses, which were off the charts. I started to feel a headache in my temples, very strong headache in my temples, pain in my chest, and I said to my colleague, "We got to get out of here." And this is on video on our website. And more or less ever since then, I've been sensitive to people's cell phones. I can feel the Wi-Fi in this room right now. It makes it very, very difficult to have a life. If you're electrosensitive, people are being driven from their homes, their communities. One of the saddest things about this whole thing is that people's electrosensitivity and the damage that smart meters are causing are not just damaging them, for that time period. It's sensitizing you for possibly years forward to this radiation that is becoming more and more ubiquitous every day. So let me just take questions afterwards. I just want to get through a few things. 6 weeks ago, I live in Plumas County, Northern California, Northern Sierras. We have a rural electric cooperative there. We submitted a doctor's letter, physician's letter to my electric cooperative saying I can't have one of these on my house because it leads to all sorts of symptoms. They arrived at our house 6 weeks ago, said you can have a smart meter or we turn your power off. And so they turned our power off. We've been without electricity for now 6 weeks. We refuse to pay their opt-out fee because we feel it's extortion. And so there's no hot running water, no refrigeration. We lived off the grid before, so we're used to it. We do have heat. We have a wood-burning stove, and it is possible to live off the grid. It's a lot healthier in some ways, but at the same time, we're fighting tooth and nail in the court of public opinion, and soon, most likely in the court of law, to get our electricity restored. This electric cooperative is completely breaking the law. They are really, we've gone to the paper, and there have been multiple letters in support. So their crackdown is really backfiring. You know, 6 weeks without electricity, the word is spreading in the community. People are taking a new look at the risks of smart meters, and so their crackdown is really backfiring for them. My doctor, who diagnosed me with electrical sensitivity, is a pediatrician. She treats, she specializes in treating autistic children. There was just a report saying now 1 in 68 American children are autistic. This is up from 1 in 80 several months ago, I think. And those who are white people are more heavily affected than Latinos or black people. And that also corresponds with levels of technology access. So she says that, you know, if someone comes in with an autistic child, the first thing she says is take a long weekend, disconnect every wireless device, you know, go out to the country, see what happens. And more often than not, the autistic symptoms begin to wane. Autism is less of a disease than a process. So our bodies are electrochemical. They're always sending signals, all the cells to communicate, to keep things in stasis. And there's something about the wireless that is just making our biological systems go askew. And there's a case that she told me about, a 10-year-old boy who had never spoken a word in his life. The parents did this experiment. They brought him away from wireless, and he started speaking full sentences. You know, and there's countless stories like this. And so MDs are steeped in this dogma that wireless is safe. They are trained not to believe people who say, you know, I didn't know. It's like when someone turns on their cell phone, my head hurts. It's like obvious. It's not a matter of psychology or imagining the symptoms. It's a bona fide physical problem. And unfortunately, the medical establishment is misdiagnosing these problems. They're diagnosing people with all sorts of things except for exposure to wireless technology, prescribing them powerful pharmaceuticals which just mask the symptoms. Insomnia is among the worst ever. And so there's this whole kind of dogma and world of denial that you'll find where these things are happening, the damage is occurring, but it's explained away. It's just too upsetting to think about that our government would know about all this stuff, would have all the studies, but then allow this to continue. It's a horrible, horrible, uncomfortable thought, but it's true. I want to just say, if you have any questions about this, you know, I encourage you to do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Don't take Virginia's word. Don't take the Take Back Your Powers word. Go and do your research from initial sources. Read original research that's not funded by industry. There's a lot of links on our website, stopsmartmeters.org. There's literature on the table to take. You know, we've been running this website now for 4 years. On the strength of donations from the public. We depend heavily on donations from the public. If you can't afford to donate to Stop Smart Meters or know someone who can, it really helps us spread the message. We have a donation jar in the back on the table. If you can just give whatever you can, would be tremendously helpful to offset the cost of putting this event on. We've got copies of the DVD of this film that are available for a $20 donation, or 2 for $35, or 3 for $50. So it's a pretty good deal, and we have them here today. We also have these electro-smog meters that were featured in the film. These measure RF radiation between 100 megahertz and 8 gigahertz, which covers Wi-Fi, cell towers, cell phones, smart meters. It has a sound function. They slip in your pocket, and people think you're looking at your smartphone when you're using it. But it's really good because RF is invisible, because you can't taste it or smell it or touch it. This really gives you the tools to look around, you know, where you work, where you live, where you spend your time, where your kids spend their time, and see what are the levels and how do they relate to the various studies that are going on. How can I minimize these sources? There's some very, very easy things that you can do to minimize your exposure. Don't use cordless phones. They are, in some cases, worse than cell phones because the base station is always emitting. If you have that base station near where you are, it's exposing you to high levels of RF radiation constantly. My good friend, Deb Hubsmith, was recently diagnosed with leukemia and is in treatment at Stanford Hospital getting a bone marrow transplant. I went and measured her workstation that she was working 12 hours a day in. 2 cordless phone base stations, a Wi-Fi router right there, and levels that are like off the charts. I can't say that that caused her illness, but she feels that it was certainly a contributing factor. You can go and plug in your computer to a wired Ethernet connection. You can ditch your cell phone. I ditched mine. It's after 2 weeks. I was like, oh, where's my cell phone? And then it was fantastic, liberating experience. You do not need a cell phone. Corded landline. Just avoid cell phone towers. We've got a lot in town here, but don't spend a lot of time near them. Carry one of these with you. They're available here for a $150 donation, and that supports our work. Yeah, that's really all I'm going to say. I don't want to go on for too much longer. I really want to hear from you guys if you have questions or if you have experiences to report in Fort Collins with your dealings with the utility, and particularly want to gear this toward organizing for the future, organizing here in Fort Collins to get these meters removed, to get better policies in place, and to spread awareness here.
And you'll be blacklisted if you do. More or less, they'll blacklist you.
Well, they can't blacklist the whole town, can they?
Yes. But is there any way to block it?
Shielding,
like the old lady that's gone through the Holocaust and everything with all those meters right there.
Right.
But when she went in the other room and shut the bedroom door, she felt better. So is there...
Okay, a few things to know about RF radiation is that the exposure of radiation declines with an inverse square of the distance, which means that if you go 10 times, like let's say 1 foot versus 10 feet, it doesn't decrease 10 times, it decreases 100 times. So distance really matters, how far you are away from the source. Shielding is only a partial solution. You still have dirty electricity generated by the switch mode power supplies from the meters that travels along the wiring that you cannot shield. And that's whether you have a digital meter or a non-transmitting meter or a transmitting meter, it doesn't matter. Also, RF is transmitted from each meter in a sphere, so in all directions. And you can block and reflect certain RF if you put aluminum foil up, but that can also make the situation worse if you have sources on the other side. So it's a complex issue. The bottom line is you got to get them removed. You got to remove the source. Shielding is only a very, very small partial solution.
Well, yeah.
Now, you have aluminum foil. Okay, there's meters out there, and you want to put it on your inside wall closest to the meter. Do you face the foil shiny side toward you or shiny side toward the wall? And what did you say the downside of that is?
So again, I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you have an RF meter and you know what you're doing and you know where all the sources of radiation are and you can measure the difference. But if you do want to do it, the shiny side of the foil should be toward the meter. You should cover a large area inside. But really, at the end of the day, if it's your house, it's your decision. You have a legal right to get rid of that meter. And if that incurs wrath from the utility in terms of shutting off your power or putting you on some list, that is just, I encourage you to not, this is what bullies love to do. They love to intimidate people. They love to force things on people. What a bully hates is when someone stands up to them and shows them to be
what
powerful.
did you say the downside of that foil?
The downside of the foil is that if you have radiation on the other side of it,
Other side of it.
coming from inside or from the other side, it can reflect it in such a way so it can increase the power by up to 1,000%.
Well, the meter's outside.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You might have sources of radiation coming from inside your home or from the other side of your home through the windows. There's multiple scenarios, so I don't want to tell you that shielding is the solution because it's really not. The solution is getting rid of the
I wasn't trying
meters.
to suggest that.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out if there was a way, even temporarily,
Yeah.
the person could help.
Yeah, I mean, we do, for people who are in a situation where they're absolutely stuck, perhaps in a multi-unit dwelling with a bank of meters on the wall, and there's no way they can leave for economic reasons or perceived reasons, then putting up like a sheet of foil or a space blanket can potentially provide some temporary relief. But there's a big asterisk on that.
The reason I want to tell everybody you've got to get rid of this is because I've been on the conference calls with Curtis Bennett, the thermoguy.com, and he owns an environmental firm called Thermographics. He said regardless of opt-outs, if I've opted out in all my neighbors' meters going at the same time, it creates what's called the cloud, and there's billions of pulses in this cloud. And what happens is it's actually causing what's called molecular earthquakes, and it will actually damage the concrete foundations of our homes. So you can imagine what this is doing to our bodies. So we just have to get them stopped.
Laundry.
No.
Either one.
Okay. So this is a two-part question. I'm in the obviously Poudre Valley REA. This is an email, and I'll just read a part of it because that's kind of the two questions. My neighbor, he said, Poudre Valley REA received my letter on Monday. They immediately replaced my analog meter on Tuesday morning because he said, I don't want the smart meter. But they immediately replaced it Tuesday morning without letting him know with the Iatronic. And so Poudre Valley REA is saying, oh, we have a different model, we're going to have to use this one. But I've been told that it's really not much different or pretty much the same thing. And so A, what is that model, or what is that? And then the second question was, Poudre Valley REA is saying the old meters will not work with the new system once it is completely rolled out. Is that just bogus, or what is that? So those are the two questions.
The utilities are trying to confuse you by saying, oh, our meters aren't smart meters because we've succeeded in giving smart meters a really bad reputation, deserved reputation. So they say, oh, our meters aren't smart meters. They're radio frequency meters, or they're non-transmitting meters, or digital.
No, but he's saying this one is a he said he also
Right.
showed me that there are no RFs in this base model.
Right,
Those
so-
who don't want the smart meter.
Those give dirty electricity.
Yes.
Those
So
are
any
very dangerous.
any meter that has electronic components.
Either or, they're both bad.
Right, yeah, any digital.
Yeah, so basically, one way of thinking about it, it's really super simple, is that there are electromechanical analog meters with a spinning disc and the dials that do not have any electronic components. Because to have electronic components, you need a switch mode power supply to convert the AC to DC. So there's analog meters, and then there's smart meters. And then you want to insist on anything else that's digital, and to make matters a bit more complicated, utilities are also deploying what are called Trojan horse analog meters, which look like an analog meter, but actually have hidden electronic components and are emitting constant radio frequency.
So now is it, when they say the system won't support the old analog,
They're lying.
they're long?
It basically assume their utilities are lying unless you have peer-reviewed scientific evidence that they're not. They lie. They do not have any qualms about
For those of
lying.
us who are wanting to opt out, are we looking at the same thing that you just experienced, where they're going to say, okay, we're just going to shut you down?
It's happened in Fort Collins, it's happened all over the
So
state.
they haven't here.
I opted out. I've sent them letters saying I'd sue them and everything else, and I actually was met at the door on March 6th with two heads of the utilities of Fort Collins here, two police officers.
month.
One was around the corner, one
2
was
weeks
at my
ago.
front door, and two big utility trucks. Yep, and they'd already turned my power off, and
Well, they turn it off to put in the smart meter. Yeah, so
So,
that's a smart meter.
so I have a smart meter.
And they're lying that their
Shield.
system won't work with the analog meters because it worked for 80 years. At least analog meters last 80 years. They last a really, really long time.
If the new computerized stuff, they can control it. The analog
Right.
meters, they can't shut
Yeah,
on and
they
off.
want to be able to remotely
I
disconnect.
have the new digital meter on my house without the modules in it. I got a letter from them, I had to do all that, I still had the police at my house, I went through all this. You've got to watch that meter, you've got to take the numbers off of it, because they can come up at any time, take it apart, and plug the modules into it, and turn it into a smart meter just like
our
that.
situation is unique because when we bought our house, our meter's in it, inside our house. So they actually can't get to it.
And you have a digital one, Maria?
It's the old, it's the old school. We have the old school
Okay,
analog.
great. Well,
They
you're in a
can't.
really good situation. In San Francisco, where most meters are inside the home, that's a huge benefit to the population there because you can simply say, I'm not going to let you in. Do they have a key to come read the meter?
No.
Okay, well then just do not let them in. Let them know they do not have permission to come in. In that situation in San Francisco where the person in question did not sign up for an opt-out program per se and also did not allow access, the opt-out fees appeared on his bill. He went to the California Public Utilities Commission and challenged it, saying I did not proactively sign up for this program. I'm simply withholding access, and that is reasonable. He got the charges removed from his bill. So you're dealing with sociopaths here. It's important to remember that. You're not dealing with ordinary people. And in order to deal with them effectively, you've got to realize that they they can do whatever they want. They can turn off your power if they want. They can, you know, and our dependence on electricity makes us vulnerable to things like the smart meter program. And the last thing I would say in response to your question is that this is not a threat that we can effectively deal with individually. We need to get together with our neighbors, our community. If they do take rash action like disconnecting us or charging us reasonable fees, we need to get that publicized. Do not rest if they come and cut off your power. We've been knocking on doors for the last 6 weeks. We've been writing letters to the editor. We've been going to every city council meeting. They try to get us to sign a non-disclosure agreement to say we wouldn't talk about this, to give up our First Amendment rights. So clearly they're upset about us going to talk about it. The day after they disconnected us, they sent a staff member around with a telephoto lens taking photos into our home. Made my wife incredibly scared. They have been spreading lies about us to people who call, saying that we didn't pay our base bill. You know, they have been coercing us into trying, you know, using the withholding of our electricity to get us to agree to give up our rights. So, but they're losing. You know, we're holding out. We're tough. You know, we are supported by our neighbors. They are, you know, allowing us to freeze water for ice for our coolers, and we have a wood-burning stove. You know, we're gonna hold out. There's no way we're gonna pay the fees. There's no way we're gonna back down. And that's really what you've got to do. Like even one person holding out and just spreading the message. You know, what's really key is that you know the facts, that you research the facts, have a few key talking points, and it's not about what you believe. It's about what the facts are. You know, the World Health Organization says that the radiation from smart meters may cause cancer. You know, that in and of itself is huge, and most people don't even know that. So. You know, and if you have any questions, if you need any advice or support, that's what we're here for. We can provide consultations on that. I think you were next.
Okay, I'd like to know who that guy is over there taking our pictures without our knowledge or consent.
Oh, he's well,
He's a good guy.
he's good. He's one of us.
He's
So
one of us.
if you don't want to be filmed, maybe you can angle the camera away from.
Yeah, Bruce Bowman, we are changed for the record.
Yeah.
He's supporting it for the website and for.
Well, that's really to know, but
He's got
I would just like to have it announced up front when you started.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're
Yeah,
good
I
question.
just had, okay, so I live in a rented house that's really old, and we had our smart meter put in. Last year, I didn't know it was even put in. This little guy helped him put them in the backyard.
Jeez.
And unknowing, we didn't know anything about it. So what I did notice though last summer was that my electric bill shot up, and I know that in the summer we don't use the air at all. We don't use less lights because the days are longer. And usually, traditionally, our electric bill is lower in the summertime. And it's been running over $200 a month, you know, since we got it. And, okay, so my question is the analog meter also reading, I mean, is it still working? Is it still functional? It's still doing its thing? Can we just take off the smart meter? My husband?
An electric smart meter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we just disassemble it?
Well,
what would happen?
There's a series of steps that you need to take to legally do that, and those are on our website also if you want to check it out. Stopsmartmeters.org, stopsmartmeters.org.
What we need to do is organize, and I think everybody needs to do the same time. You can actually repurchase an analog meter on
Hialeah meter.
But we already have one? Is it still functioning? I guess that's my question. It's not working?
They took it away.
They took it away and they replaced it with this.
Oh,
smart
okay.
meter.
There was nothing wrong with your analog meter. My mother's house, they just put a brand new one on in
We have
Wichita.
two different ones. We have an analog meter in the front of the house, and the smart meter is on the side of the house.
So you have two
And you have
units.
two different services in your, I'm a licensed electrician, and you have two
Okay.
different services in your house.
Most likely,
If you have two meters, you have two different services. That's the only reason for two different meters.
I wouldn't just say one before I forget to. This is probably about a month and a half ago. It was somewhere in Alabama that they can shut your power off at any time with these meters too. They shut everybody's power off somewhere in Alabama, and people were calling in the next day and they weren't going to bring the power back on. They said if you or your family get cold, you need to go to the town centers to warming stations.
Okay,
So
so
this is the
when they
stuff
shut
we
the
can
power
hear.
off, and you're dealing with Fort Collins utilities, where my electric, my water, and my sewer is all, on the same bill, does that mean I lose all of those things, or I'm just losing the electric?
This is
Depends on how
uncharted
bad you make them
territory. They can do what they want, but but to disconnect essential services to someone who's paying their bills but simply doesn't want to be exposed to this, it looks really bad in the court of public opinion. So my advice to Fort Collins, and I don't care, you know, if the utility hears this, is that people need to get together in a group. The first step is to sign up, make sure that you leave your information so that Virginia and others can contact you. Organize a group to purchase safe analog meters together, and together have someone remove them, replace them, and return the unwanted smart meters to the utility and publicize it. Call the paper, because that kind of thing is what we did in Santa Cruz County, and it's what resulted in them backing down off this mandatory thing that they say you have to have a smart meter. The other thing I wanted to say about your comment, which is that your electricity bills have gone up. There's a number of reasons for that. You know, it's widely suspected that the utilities fiddled with what they call their cash register, the meter, so that it would charge you more. I mean, think about the potential profits if you put one of these on all, you know, 100 million homes, and you get even just 1% or 2%. So the analogs didn't measure like startup currents from refrigerators, things like that. The new smart meters do measure those currents. And the other thing is, if there's two-way communication, the utilities can at any time reprogram the meter, recalibrate it, so that it's charging you more, and there's no agency that's going in and checking them. I mean, I'm telling you, you know, they seem like they're authorities and utilities, like they should be fair and that the government should be watching. That doesn't happen. These guys are running the show. They'll do what they want unless you stop them.
And as a renter, do you have?
You have the same rights if you live there and you pay the bill as a homeowner.
We don't have to go through our land, like our.
No, if your name's on the bill, it's your right and your responsibility to get that thing off your house.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Two things. Tomorrow, Poudre Valley REA is having their meeting out on I-25 at the hotel out there, close to Budweiser Event Center.
Did you get that?
What?
Woman who asked the question?
The Embassy Suites, yes. So that's super important for everyone to know. Also,
you want to repeat that because not everyone heard.
Yeah, tomorrow, Embassy Suites on I-25. Poudre Valley REA is having the election, and the election will be for the board members. Election will be held, I think, between 10 and 12. At 12 o'clock, they're going to count the ballots, so you can really voice your opinion there if you're on Poudre Valley REA.
What is REA?
What time?
Well, it's a rural electric association, so we're all co-op owners. So as being a co-op owner, you have a lot more say.
Ostensibly.
What time?
It's between 10 and noon.
People are allowed to be able to speak, so
yes,
you can go and speak.
And you get to vote for people, so you can really hammer down on these people. And I've got my ballot at home, and you can see you can tell by the education that they know. And so, you know, it's even good to go there, you know, if you're not a part of it.
Do you know if non-REA members can go and speak?
I think that if you're accompanied by an REA.
This is their, what is an REA?
Rural Electric Association.
Yeah, Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association.
Is there any kind of public speakers? I mean, people from the public speak?
Limited to 60 seconds.
No, this is a private because it's a co-op. Well, you can if you are a member, and then if you have an accompanied person, I'm sure they could speak as they wouldn't ask. But I've also been arrested because I interviewed Fort Collins Utilities putting in a smart meter system, and I have 2 court cases.
Arrested for interviewing someone?
Yeah, they came up, they trumped up charges. I was wearing my Glock 27 on my side, open carry, and I pulled out my video, and they were doing very unlawful work practices. No safety equipment.
No gloves, no shields, no nothing?
No shields,
like they did in
no
my house?
fall suppression, no nothing. So I got it on video, but the hardest part is it's interesting how the city of Fort Collins colluded with the 8 judicial systems. And right now I have 2 cases before the appellate court in Colorado right now because of the massive fraud. And I have it on video. And I did ask very particular questions. I wasn't aggressive.
You have a right to video anywhere you're allowed to be, so don't let anyone say you can't video.
But the judge in my case, he said that there was going to be no common law in the courtroom, there was going to be
Can't do
no constitutional laws. So my defense was the First and Second Amendment right. He said I could not mention the Constitution in the courtroom. Period. I have this on.
If you wanna post your video to YouTube, send us the link, send us details about it. We'll consider posting it on StopSmurderers.org.
It's pretty serious, the amount of length and time. And then they tried to charge me for the city's workers time to go to trial and actually be a public servant. And so that's my second one. So I mean, they've tried everything to come
and they will break the law unknowingly. And you know what's important to realize is that power is not taken from people. You give it up to them by you know, if an authority is exceeding their authority and breaking the law and doing damage to the public, you need to remove your respect and don't give them that power, because just like that quote, you know, people, the most common way that people give up their power is thinking that they don't have any. We have power, each of us, to resist this and to refuse and to speak out, you know, in legal ways and where necessary, in peaceful civil disobedience. And that really matters.
They all shook my hand. You know, they knew I had a weapon on me. They were all pleasant, and the way the two 911 calls come in is they called their boss and said, "Uh-oh, we're caught." And the 911 operator says, "Well, are you on scene?" And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm at Roland Ward Park." And she's like, "I don't understand. If there's a madman with a gun harassing your crew, why haven't they called?" Well, the judge only allowed one of the 911 videotapes or audio tapes in the court for evidence, and they amended my charges and took off harassment so that I couldn't enter evidence showing why I have a weapon on me. So I mean, that's why I have two ongoing cases.
I'd like to hear more about that in the future. Yeah, I think thank you for.
Do you need our support to be there? Do you need our support to be there?
Well, it's always helpful, yes.
How can we find out when it will be?
Let's see, that's a great question.
Do you want to contact Virginia or me? And,
well, I can't contact Virginia, and I apologize, because of legal reasons.
Okay. Well, you can contact me, and I can send it out to the Fort Collins list. Just make sure you sign up on the sheet to get updates, local updates. I know there's a burning question up front, and I don't want to ignore you any longer.
Oh, I've had 5 by the way. Is there anywhere in the world that doesn't have smart meters?
Yes, there's lots of places that still use analogs and no plans to change. There's some federal legislation that was covered in the film, Smart Grid Advancement Act, which threatens to require all electric utilities to put in smart meters, but there are places that still use analogs. Liberty Utilities in California still generally uses analogs. There's places who have kept out the installers in PG&E territory.
Is there any way to find out?
There's no like central database. You know, all the people working on this generally, except for myself and a few other people, are volunteers. And you know, really, you just have to do the research yourself. If you find out information you want to share, let us know. You know, there's places that are more rural that don't have them. There's places that have smart meter free zones where neighbors have gotten together and refused. But apart from what those I mentioned, I'm not really aware.
So maybe those places weren't offered this huge sum of money to bring these in and you get $50 million.
Right, stimulus funding, yeah.
Just to let everybody know, Fort Collins took a $15 million grant, and the first time in 18.1. Well, yeah, you're right.
I have it on court record.
But Fountain took some of that money. So really, they took they put us in debt for the first time in 75 years. On top of that $15 million, those federal grant dollars are our dollars either way. But they put us in debt for the first time in 75 years, and then we borrowed $15 million to put these on our houses. So we're in debt over these things.
And to let you know, the district attorney wanted me to have 2 days suspended jail time, and Judge Lynch gave me 2.5 years suspended. This is how much that they're polluting.
Oh yeah, they want to shut this down.
They want to absolutely shut it down.
That means that the more people involved in this, the more people speaking out, the safer that everyone is.
So even the district attorney that said, we'll suspend 2 days jail time, the judge says, no, I'm going to give them max, 2.5 years prison on 3 misdemeanors.
But, you know, I mean, speaking out, we still have the First Amendment rights. We can still show this video in public and speak publicly about it. You know, we have these rights. We've got to use them because they're going to go away if we don't. Is there any more? Yeah.
I belong to Pluto Valley REA. I have an analog meter for the past 2 years. So I'm just kind of telling people that what I did was send a certified letter to Pluto Valley when all this began years ago. I said, I want that off my property. I want to replace that smart meter with an analog.
And they did.
Because me and a few other people did go to the meetings and we protested, and the CEO gave a big spiel about how great they were, and you know. So I'm just saying that you can replace those smart meters with an analog meter, and they're very cheap. I've got a property in Texas. I've just bought 48 analog meters because they went into my property without my permission, without my managers, and installed smart meters. And they said, oh, well, yeah, we contacted your manager that we're going to install smart meters. And he said, that's bull crap. They never did that. They went and installed them without my permission. I'm the owner. So, and I have those sitting in a storage place, which I am going to replace every smart meter in that property.
Video and send us the video, please.
With analogs.
Yeah.
Because they're very cheap.
I think that we're going to need to wrap up here soon, right?
Okay, yes. I wanted to, I don't know if this is doable, but maybe some people would like to go to dinner at some place where we could continue the conversation if that's doable.
Yeah.
It's not doable. But maybe that would be helpful so that more people can tell their story and we can think of more solutions.
Maybe if you're interested in doing that, we can assemble
Okay, so
outside
they want us out here no later than 6 o'clock, so maybe we better start buying your stuff.
5:45 they told me, and then we have to put all the chairs back too. And the
Are there any
like it was.
any last like really burning questions that you want them
Just
to hear?
one thing.
You and then
The question I had was just, Josh, do you have any, since people are going to be very hard pressed to just give up their cell phones, do you have anywhere to point them to for like the Faraday cages I've seen online, anything like that to protect your cell phone, to like keep it in a pouch where it doesn't beam out radiation all the time? Do you know anything?
keep it on airplane mode as much as possible. Keep it away from your body. You know, ditch it altogether if you can.
Awesome.
Distance matters.
Thanks for what you do, Josh.
Thank you.